Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unmasked, a Beyond Worthy podcast. My name is Rachel Peck, and I am currently at Columbia University in a studio here, Teachers College. Take a few deep breaths with me before I introduce our lovely guest today, and just notice the present moment. That's all I ask. Check in with your heart, where you might be at today. And then just take one more intentional deep breath. And then I'm going to welcome to the stage Ann Sheridan, who I call Aunt Ann. However, not actually my aunt. So let's unpack this. Aunt Ann, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Rachel, and very happy to be here with you.
I'm so excited for this chat with you. It's going to be so fun. Will you tell us where you're tuning in from?
Yes, I'm on the island of Kauai in the state of Hawaii, and I stay at a friend's house when I'm here. I don't have a condo or a rental place at all. I have some very dear old friends that when I'm in Hawaii, I stay in their home. So that's where I am. In essence, my 6 months home in Hawaii as opposed to my 6 month home in Wisconsin.
Yes, which is where I see you most frequently
Yes,
because your sister, Mary, is my grandmother.
correct.
And we've gotten the chance to have many summer reunions in Door County, Wisconsin together, hanging out, eating cherries, sitting in nature, and discussing all things life, travel. When I thought about guests on this podcast, you came to mind really recently because I think you have a lot of wisdom and fun stories. So here we are. I'm excited. And we always start with three words that the guests would use to describe themselves, which are curious, an optimist, and a reader. Do you want to share a bit more about those words?
I'm happy to. I think optimist is the overriding word. I'm rather notorious for being optimistic. People have a tendency to smile when we're having a conversation because I will always present the optimist's point of view. I can talk realistically, but I prefer to move optimistically. I smile a lot. I think that goes with being an optimist. I'm open to things, to experiences. I think that's part of being an optimist. And so that's, I think, the key to my personality and the way I've been able to live my life.
That's so important. I always love being surrounded by optimists and try to be one myself. Do you feel like it's ever hard to be an optimist? Is it ever draining or is it just so natural and energizing for you?
At this point, it's so natural. It really is. Though, as you know, I'm going through something right now physically that requires me to not only look at the glass half full, but realize I'm going to have to work at keeping it half full.
Mm.
Because physically I've been set back quite a bit by breaking my leg in such a way that I now have so much metal in it that I'm sure the TSA is just, their eyes are going to pop when I go through the metal detector. And that has really, it's what they sometimes call a triggering event. I think you're probably familiar with that phraseology. A triggering event is something that causes you to really look over everything.
Mm.
Everything in your life changes physically, mentally, socially, because I've had to relearn how to walk and I've had to cut back on my regular activities. I've retired for many years, but I volunteer quite a bit. And because of this physical situation, I'm having to cut back on all of that. Well, that's not really the way to say it. I'm not able to step into that
Right.
to, to restart it. So being an optimist has been stretched. I've had to stretch to reach around that situation and find not necessarily positive things in it, but find ways to handle it.
Is there any ways in which you're thinking of, like tools that you've used through this process that have supported you mentally, physically, to just be resilient and patient in ways in a process that must be very tedious and boring sometimes because you're
Mhm.
almost waiting to live again, but trying to live
Yes.
at the same time?
Yes. That waiting and boring, those are two important words because, as you know, having done it, I'm in a lot of physical therapy, and you can only count to 10 so many times in so many ways. Okay, we're going to do 2 sets of 10. All right, now we're going to do another 2 sets of 10. Just working through that takes doing, and it's repetitive. You have to do it every day. And that's not just the physical therapy, but as you mentioned, the word resilience, it's a mental therapy that you're working on as well. How are you improving? Are you improving? You're talking to yourself. You're finding things in your daily life that are more positive so that you can keep doing those sets of 10, even though you don't feel an immediate improvement. I think the other thing is I've been very lucky, and I'm going to go to that word lucky, which, as you know, was originally one of my 3 words, but I took it out because I felt the 3 words were supposed to be characteristics within your personality that you had some control over. And of course, you have no control over being lucky.
Mm.
But I am lucky. I had wonderful health care when I was in the hospital and in rehab. I have a wonderful set of physical therapists that I'm working with. You mentioned my sister, Mary. She came here to Hawaii from Wisconsin for a month, totally stopped her life, came, took me to doctor's appointments, physical therapy. I have the family, and I do call them family, that I'm staying with. I've known Ann, another Ann, since college days. We went to college at the University of Dayton together, and I've known her and her husband forever. We owned a home together over on Oahu when we were both teaching over there. And we've obviously stayed close through all the years because here I am at their home while I'm recuperating.
Oh,
So I've been very lucky in that family. And then the family at the level that you're at, of course, I get all the prayers and good wishes. And, you take those in. You really do take those in. And it does become almost a physical part of what you're going through. Even though someone would say, well, you get a good wish card or a get well card, or they say, oh, we're praying for you. What's that? It's airy fairy. But you can take that in
mhm.
and use it to help you, especially those times in the middle of the night when you wake up and you think, oh my gosh, here I am still.
Right.
But you have that bank of goodness that you can withdraw from,
Wow.
use. Again, like you say, you use the word resilience in your resilience because that's what it takes, up and down, back and forth.
No kidding. And
Yeah.
a common thread that's just coming through is people as support and the community, family, friends. I know for myself in just some of the most challenging times, it's always been the people who drop everything and come to help or send a prayer. You're reminding me to be really grateful for that and also be okay with asking for help and receiving help. Have you had a hard time at all receiving support from people in this phase?
No,
Mm.
no, not at all. I'm not shy to ask for help either. And I think having been a teacher for so many years, I'm pretty good at reading
Yeah.
about my situation and reading about what's happening now and what's coming, and then talking to the people that lead from that to answer questions, to help me with things, to say, well, you've been through this. What was it like for you? What can I learn from that? And I have these pods of people. I used to go to the Y in Door County 5 days a week, and I call them the pool ladies. And the pool ladies have kept in touch with me and
Oh,
sent me good wishes. And I have a group of people over on Oahu where I taught for over 30 years. And we all started teaching together at this country school back in the late 60s. And we're still in touch by Zoom. And so, again, being in touch with them has been very healthy. So, those kinds of outreaches are good. And I'm happy to just soak it in.
oh,
Absolutely.
amazing. And you've mentioned teaching a few times and just more of your experience on Oahu and in Hawaii. Do you want to share how you got to teaching in Hawaii and a little bit about that?
Well, that goes back to that word lucky. One of my college roommates, I've already mentioned her, another Ann, she's from Cleveland, Ohio, but her parents volunteered for the civil service during the war. And they ended up in Hawaii working as adjuncts to Pearl Harbor. So Ann and her two sisters were all born in Hawaii. After the war, of course, they moved back to Cleveland. That's where their home was. But when they were growing up, they would be told stories about Hawaii and they'd see pictures from Hawaii. So when Anne finished college, can you guess where she went? She, of course, left Cleveland, moved to Hawaii. Her two younger sisters, they did also in turn. So all three of them ended up in Hawaii. After Anne had been here for a year, she heard that the Department of Education was recruiting teachers, especially for country schools, not in Honolulu, not on Maui and the resort areas, but, out in the countryside.
Okay.
And she knew that I had finished graduate school, gone back to Chicago, where I was born and raised. And I was, frankly, doing nothing. I was answering telephones at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, though I had these degrees, but I just didn't know where I was going. But she called me and she said, they're recruiting teachers on the mainland. If you come over, they have said, I can bring you to my interview and you could be interviewed also.
Wow.
So I bought a one-way airplane ticket, curious, right? Curious, and flew over to Hawaii. I went to my initial interview at the same time Ann did. We were then sent out to the country school way out on the North Shore, out in Kahuku, which was still a sugar plantation town at that time. We interviewed with the principal, and 10 days later, I walked into the school that I walked out of 34 years later. So we talk about lucky and the best possible match. That was all luck. And that I fit in and that I loved it and that we worked hard at making ourselves part of the community. We were curious about everything. We had kids from all over the Polynesian countries, from New Zealand to Fiji to, of course, Japan, and the Philippines, because those people had all come to work on the plantation. So we learned about that part of the world, which we had known nothing about, basically.
I see the luck in there. And
Oh,
also, like, you to just jump on that and say, yes, I'm going to buy a one-way ticket. Were you afraid at all? Was there any part of you that was like, no,
really?
let's
No,
go.
I'll tell you, I was so naive at that point. I was just naive. My parents were from farm families in Wisconsin, so I knew that life. I was born and raised in Chicago and went to a Catholic elementary school, an all-girls Catholic high school, a Catholic college, and then finally I went to graduate school in Ohio as well. But I basically knew nothing. At that time, I thought Hawaii was a little further west than the Catalina Islands. I mean, I didn't know it was the most remote landmass in the world. I didn't know that. So I just jumped on it. I was curious about it to see what it was and what it was all about and what I could do there.
Did your family have anything to say about it at the time? Were they
Oh,
against for it?
did they ever? Oh my gosh. Well, my father had just retired and he and mom had actually sold our home. So when I went back to Chicago from school, I moved into an apartment, a short term rental apartment with them because our home was gone. And they were on their way out to Sun City, Arizona, which was one of Del Webb's first retirement colonies. And they were going to, in the process of buying a home. And they promised me that if I moved out to Arizona with them, that no, I couldn't stay in the retirement colony, but I could get a nearby apartment and I could stay there and we could be together. Well, I was not the sharpest cheese on the block, but I knew that that was not right. So I crossed my fingers. I told a big lie. I said, well, I'm just going to go over to Hawaii for 2 years to get my tenure, and then I'll be back. I'll come back to the mainland. Sure.
Mm-mm.
Total lie. Absolutely total lie.
Oh man, that is hilarious. But did you expect to stay in Hawaii for 34 years?
No, I had no expectations at
Yeah.
that point. I was just jumping in the pool and seeing what was in there.
Man.
No, but we were very lucky. We were haoles. That's the word for white people in Hawaii. I learned right away what it was like to be a minority, which was very interesting. Totally different atmosphere because everybody in my school pretty much was local. There were a few other mainland teachers, but mostly everybody was local. So I had to learn to understand pidgin, which is what a lot of kids spoke. There was no, at that time, second language program. You know, second language programs are common now.
Yeah.
Was no special reading program. All the kids were together in one classroom. I had kids who couldn't speak English. They were just from, Samoa. And I was up in front of the class speaking college English. And they were sitting in their desks speaking pidgin and a local patois. And so Ann and I joke and we say, if we could find the names and addresses of every kid that we taught our first 2 years at Kahuku, we would send them a letter of apology. It's we probably taught them nothing the first 2 years because we were just trying to figure out how to communicate.
Wow.
But we had a wonderful group of local teachers who took us under their wing and helped us acclimate. And at that time, we were living in Honolulu, so we were commuting an hour and a half every day back and forth. But they helped us learn about the local community and start to get comfortable so that when we moved out to the country, which we, of course, eventually did and built our own home out there, by that time, we were fully into it. And it was fascinating because there was always something new to learn.
Mhm.
It was wonderful, wonderful.
That is wild. So after 2 years, when you felt like you started to settle in more, did you learn Pidgin or any of these languages, or how did you communicate after that?
Oh, yes, you learn pidgin, but you keep speaking standard English, just not college standard English. You cut your vocabulary in half a little bit, but you want the kids to learn standard English so that they're comfortable when they leave the plantation.
Yep, totally.
Just like I'm learning pidgin, so I'm comfortable there. You want them to be comfortable at least listening to standard English so they're comfortable when they're out there. So that was a good exchange. So no, I kept on with very articulate standard English, just leveled down the vocabulary, especially since the first couple of years, as new teachers, it was a K to 12 school when I got there and large. We had 1,800 kids at school. We were a very big school, K to 12. And of course, as a new teacher, you get the intermediate grades. You get 7, 8. So
Mm.
it took me X numbers of years to move up into the high school where we were reading more literature and learning more high level usages, so that by the time I was teaching high school, then you wanted standard English, and the kids spoke standard English too by that time.
Is there anything in pidgin that you would say? I have no idea what this would even entail. Is there any like phrase or something you could share?
Yeah, I'm going to see you. Bye bye. I'm going to see you. Bye bye.
Does that translate to I'll see you
And
later?
I'm going to see you later. Yes.
Okay, huh.
See, you got it. And the pidgin, of course, it's a very rich patois because, of course, it was a survival language for the people working on the plantation because you had the Chinese, the Filipinos, the Japanese, the Samoan, the Tongan, and they had to work together and they had to live together in the plantation camp. So they had to be able to communicate. So that's part of the actual richness of that patois. I mean, you've been to Hawaii, so you know what a local plate lunch is.
Uh-huh.
It can have Chinese noodles on it, and it can have Japanese tonkatsu on it, and it can have mainland macaroni salad, and it can have Japanese 2 scoops of rice, Japanese rice. Well, that all came out of the plantation. So that's part of the richness of it.
So cool, the blending of cultures and the merge there. Wow.
Wonderful.
I didn't know the back history of that, so thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of friends who are in teaching,
Mm-hmm.
and they share how rewarding it can be and also how challenging teaching can be. And that there's so much turnover, especially in the first few years, because of the challenges that are faced in a field like that. What kept you in teaching in Hawaii for 34 years? What do you think it was? What keeps you there?
I definitely, and I have thought about this, I would definitely say that teaching as a profession is the most creative and the most difficult profession that you can be in. And that's what keeps you there. It is endlessly creative because you're constantly working with new groups of kids. You're working with different kinds of materials. You're working in different social settings. And it's the most difficult for that exact same reason.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what keeps you there. It's the kids and what you're doing with the kids. I know my mom used to come and visit from Door County, Wisconsin, and she would come to school 1 day a week, and she had been a secretary. So she would type things for me. She would correct papers and stay on campus for the day. I'd send her over to the library, which was air conditioned, because my classroom, in all the years, I never had an air conditioned classroom.
In
Most,
Hawaii?
yes, most of my school was not air conditioned ever. We got an air conditioned library because it was also a state library. It was a partnership library. And once we started to get computers, the computer room was air conditioned.
Okay.
And the music room was air conditioned, and the office, the front office, finally. But in my teaching life, I was never in an air conditioned classroom, never. So sent mom to the library, and then I'd go over and meet her, and we'd walk across campus. And sometimes she'd say, Ann, these kids, they're so big. Aren't you ever afraid of them? Because especially the Polynesian kids, they are big. Physically, their stature is big. And we were known for being a very sports minded school, especially football. So the Samoan and the Tongan and the Hawaiian boys, who by the time they're sophomores and juniors, they look like adults. They look like adult men, were playing at Kahuku. And we'd be walking across campus, and mom would ask me that. And I'd say, Mom, just listen. And we'd walk across campus, and kids would smile at you. They'd go, Hey, miss, how are you? This your ma? And they say, Oh, nice to meet you. So good to see you. So glad you could come. And, you get that a couple of times, and you finally realize what the atmosphere is on campus. The kids, I always said they were country kids, very open-hearted, very wide in their social experiences because of all the different cultures, but not in terms of like class experiences,
Mhm.
social steps. Everybody was pretty much at the same level. So I think that helped too. And since we were all different and we were all there, I mean, nobody was the same, basically. We just all got along.
Gosh, I love that. So wholesome, just the way that you describe them
Oh, wonderful.
welcoming
Yeah.
mother and you, and just the way that they're communicating. What did you do during the summers? Because I imagine it was the same general school year, and then you got the summer off. Stay
Yes,
in Hawaii?
absolutely. Many years I would stay in Hawaii for financial reasons.
Right.
I did work in Waikiki. I was a waitress. I was a hostess. I actually was a waitress in the last Jewish delicatessen in Waikiki for one summer.
Wow.
Yeah, who knew? Who knew? So I did a lot of that stuff, especially when we were still living in Honolulu. And, there was a big social scene in Waikiki. We have lots of military bases in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So military guys would come into Waikiki and go to the nightclubs. And yes, there was a social scene, to say the least, and that was fun. And then some summers I would travel back to Door County to spend some time with family up in the family home. And then sometimes I traveled, but a lot of times I stayed in Hawaii because, I mean, really, where else would you rather be?
Right. What a terrible place to stay. I mean, come on. I've been there 3 times now, and it's one of my favorite. Any day of the week, I will go. It is the best. The
Well, you have
locals.
you have
Yeah.
good taste.
Yeah, thank you. You and me
What do,
both.
what do you like about it?
Oh, man, I love the feeling of being there, the welcoming energy, the locals being able to have fun conversations with people who are very open and wanting to chat and embrace you. And then also, I mean, the weather is an obvious one, but I think one of my favorite things is the variety in activity. And it's just a good combination of beach, hiking, driving, and all of it together it's one of my favorites. And it's the feeling of being there.
What you're feeling there is not just the geographic beauty and the social beauty, but there's a great spiritual power in Hawaii, as I'm sure you know. Traditionally, the Hawaiians believe that the gods are in nature.
Mm.
And aloha, actually, the ha in aloha means breath, and alo means spirit. So if you see two traditional Hawaiian folks meet, they don't kiss, they don't shake hands. What they do is they put their foreheads together and they share a breath.
Wow.
They just share a breath. And that's a sacred breath that they're sharing. So that's on the human level. But on the other level, if you look at the place names and you read some of the stories, well, I mean, if you saw Moana,
Mm-hmm.
Maui, right, is a god, and he's the god of fire and he's the god of water. And everything in nature is tied to a spirit and tied to the people. And I think that's part of what you're picking up if you're willing to be sensitive to it.
Absolutely. I nature has always been moving in a spiritual way for me. So that's something that clearly there's a lot of history in spirituality in Hawaii. And also there's so much nature that is so accessible. And I always feel some sense of expansion within myself when I'm in nature. And then also that connection with other people that isn't always communicated. Feeling connected to people, not even having to speak to them, is definitely a way that I've felt in Hawaii. I find it really wonderful that you've spent so much time there and clearly are a local. And we've got like 10 minutes left. Obviously, you've done so much other travel. One thing I wanted to ask you that you said at the beginning was an injury like the one that you faced, breaking your leg, it caused you to do this life review. And I wondered if there was anything else you wanted to say about that in terms of just a review of your life and defining moments or what matters, anything more from that life review that was reflective that you wanted to share.
Well, you're certainly right about the traveling. That has been a big part of my life. And I've been very lucky to be able to do quite a bit of traveling. And in a very practical level, one thing that has come to my mind is that I've thought back to a number of my trips and I've thought about the ones that I'll never be able to do again. I mean, cobblestones, absolutely not. Never going to be able to do cobblestones again. Going up and down stairs on bridges and castles and moats, and I can't do that anymore. So it's given me a chance to actually call up these pictures and try to turn it into, I mean, it's already a positive memory, but say to myself, well, Ann, you were so lucky to be able to do that. And you let yourself enjoy it. And you did it with great people. So you have that already. You've got it. And on a very practical level, when I get back to Door County, I'm going to go into my closet to that huge plastic tub where I have slides and drawings and pictures and journals from those trips. And I'm going to go through them all and enjoy them all over again because I'm just not going to be able to do that again. But I have that. That's the twist I'm trying to put into my mind. That's the optimistic thing again. I'm trying to say, you have it. You already have it. So cherish that. Don't say, well, you can't go to Alaska again and sit in a little airplane and fly straight at Mount Denali on one of the 30 days of the year when it's clear to be able to see it. You can't do that, but you've done it. You've got it. You can call the picture up in your mind. So it's okay. I'd like to be greedy.
Of course.
But I can't. I've got what I've got.
Right. And it would be so easy to attach to that feeling of, oh, I can never do that again. Mm-hmm. However, it's so not in service of you and trying to cultivate positivity and optimism. It's really impressive to be able to be aware to flip the narrative in the way that you just described. Mm-hmm. The optimistic lens of, I have these memories and photos and I can transport myself back by remembering and recognizing that I've had those experiences. That's huge, really valuable. What are you most proud of yourself for, aside from achievements, being a teacher, anything related to character, personality, and who you are beyond the labels?
I have worked at keeping people close, family, friendships, because all that takes work. Even staying close to family takes work, especially since I'm in two different places, one in the center of where our family geography is, but one way away in Hawaii from everybody else. And this group of people that I started teaching with back in 1968, Ann, my friend, who lets me stay in her home 6 months out of the year. I think I've been pretty good at being a good friend, a good family member, and keeping people close, doing the work of that.
Beautiful. Are there any other questions on the template of questions that I send out to every guest? For those who don't know, in advance to every episode, I send a question sheet to guests to get the wheels turning. I don't often ask them in the session because it usually always goes in so many directions, and that's the beautiful part. But is there anything else from that question list that piqued your interest or gave you a certain thought about yourself, about worthiness, labels, anything that you wanted to share?
I think the whole thing about labels I found very interesting. There were a number of questions about labels.
Mhm.
And I spent a lot of time thinking about that, as you can tell, because of course I changed my I changed my 3 words 3 times. So so obviously I was thinking about labels, and I think labels can be helpful, but on a very simplistic level. And I think they can be very, I'm trying to think of what word I want to use.
When you did that,
Strangling.
yeah, confining.
You saw my gesture. I reached for my throat.
Yes.
Yeah. Labels
Restrictive.
are so tricky. And I understand it's a neat way to get going with something or to quickly communicate something. But I think it can be, everybody talks about it, where we are in the world today. I think labels do us a disservice.
I agree. That's my stance. They can be a disservice when we hold them too tightly. Some guests and conversations I've had have helped me be more optimistic about labels in the way in which they can be in service of us. If we
Mm,
can manage to be in partnership with them and let go of them, release them, and work
hmm
with them.
hmm
But that's the whole reason that so many of the questions are about labels, because it's always how we describe ourselves is like, oh,
hmm
I'm a soccer player, I am a grad student. And I just hope that people recognize that there's so much more than those things is why I try and strip those labels away. And my last question for you today, before we wrap up, is what's one of your biggest curiosities in life currently that just lights you up?
Well, I think because of the recent trip around the moon of our astronauts, and I used to read a lot of science fiction when I was in high school and college, and even after that. I stopped reading it because it got very dystopian and I couldn't live in all that negativity. But oh boy, there's so much out there. There is just so much out there. And aren't we lucky to be a part of it? If you think of the dynamic and the chance, the luck that the molecules came together to make our planet, much less to make us. And then, oh my gosh, what's out there?
So true. What a great way to end. And what a way to leave people questioning this and being curious of everything that's out there. So
I
well said.
I know you say we're done, but can I
Yeah.
sneak in one more thing?
Please.
Because I have a question to put on your list, a question that I do not have the answer to, and that my friends and I have talked about. And maybe through your wonderful podcast, your folks can come up with something.
I'm going to write it down. Tell it. Share it with
Please
us.
do. And maybe it's been brought up in a podcast and I missed it. Why is it so hard to do the right thing? You know what the right thing is. You know, but it's so hard many times to get it done. Why is that? Have you talked about that in any of your podcasts?
We have not.
Would you put that on your list
I
of
will.
questions?
Absolutely. This is a great question, and I'm going to ponder it as we leave
Yeah.
today. And my first initial thought is that so often the right thing is the hard thing.
Why? It's right.
Hmm.
We've been taught since kindergarten. You remember that old thing about everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten? I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not.
Saying that, oh, I'm going to send you the book. I'm going to
Okay.
send you the book. It's fantastic. And or if you go by the golden rule, or if you go by any religion, we know the right thing.
Mm,
It's
yes,
so hard to do. So great. If you would talk to your brilliant guests
I will. Thank you so
about that.
much. And I hope that everyone listening ponders this question. Why
Please.
is it so hard to do the right thing? We're going to leave everyone with that. And I can't wait to think more about it. So thank you, Aunt Ann.
You're welcome, Rachel.
This has been such a
Aloha.
beautiful, yeah, aloha. This has been such a beautiful conversation. And thanks everyone who is tuning in to listen. Hey everyone, before you go, if you have any desire to further support the mission of Unmasked, there is a link in the comment section of all of my episodes that says support the show. feel free to click on that. There is an option to donate anywhere from $1 and beyond monthly or one time. So do that if it feels aligned. Otherwise, would love for you to keep listening and return to Unmasked as always. Thanks.